Okay, hello everyone. After having a snack I didn't have in a long time and I quite enjoyed, I am just about ready to review this book I read very intently 5 years ago, kind of reread most of it recently, and I wanted to give insights on this book because this is not a book I see talked about very often. So, it's kind of hard to summarize this book because it's meant to be a book that you pick up out of curiosity. Maybe some of you will stumble upon this review, listen to the whole thing, and be like, that sounds like something I'd like to read. But, to summarize it really quickly, the author obviously has a Settian background. When I read this book, there were terms like, Khepr being thrown around, and, there is a lot of reference also to techno magic, which is slightly different from what some people mean when they say techno magic. We'll get into some of that later, but I think this book it's useful to a lot of different kinds of people, but exactly how much you're going to take of it is going to highly depend on what you're looking for in the book, if that makes sense. So the thing that makes this book somewhat of an easy read, despite being highly technical, is that the author explains his position and terminology very well. He has a whole section on explaining exactly what the terms he uses mean, which is useful not only because there are definitely going to be people who are newer to magic and the left-hand path who are going to pick up this book, but also even for advanced practitioners, the terminology is very unique in some aspects. Some people might see this as a shortcoming because it means the book is harder to digest. I kind of see this as not so much a shortcoming because it means the author has a lot of experience in this particular form of unique magic and is willing to kind of make his own rule book, so to speak, which, considering this is supposed to be a book about left-hand path technical magic, it's kind of a win, considering the philosophy and purpose of the left-hand path. So I say that summarizes kind of the core strengths of the book and why you should pick it up in the first place. It has a simple writing style, but it is not vanilla writing, if you get what I mean. The author has a style. It's just a very straightforward one. As I said, this book, what you'll take away of it will depend on your path and such. A lot of the kind of material in this book I have heard from Settians. I kind of got that vibe from other Settian things I have read, whether they were online posts or PDFs or what have you. I noticed that the techno and techno magic is kind of more of an application of magic as a technology. So there is all that to consider. And it is a unique book in that way. I think it can be both a strength and a weak point. It's really a double-edged sword here, because on one hand, there isn't really a book like this that I have read, especially for guides to left-hand path magic and philosophy, but on the other hand, this is a very author-centric book, and so the person who is reading this is going to get concepts that they find might not be applicable to the path, which is good. Often that is kind of the double-edged sword a lot of left-hand books deal with, I've noticed, because of the value of the self. I think this book does a better job of handling that double-edged sword than others, but it is still something that you will somewhat notice as you are reading this book. And because of that, it is very hard to simply recommend this book. I think this book isn't something you can just recommend. I think it's something where it kind of comes to you. It's kind of like a tarot deck, how people will say, you know, I just have to buy this deck because it calls out to me, or something like that. I feel like this book is much the same way. If you look at this book and you're like, I want to read this, go ahead and read it. If you kind of hear about the content of this book and you're like, this doesn't sound interesting, don't read it. I actually gave away very little of what the book actually talks about, because it's kind of one of those books you have to experience. It is very hard to talk about books that are like that. And I think people who are looking for a philosophical read might have a lot to read in this book and consider. But people who are not particularly interested in such a mind-heavy approach to things, they're not going to take so much away from this book. So that is kind of my verdict on it. I've had this book since, oh gosh, years now. I still flip through it every once in a while, and even though it is less applicable to my path more than ever, I still think it's a rather good book, and I think if you haven't read it, at the very least consider reading it. Alright, I hope you found this interesting. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see on the channel, consider subscribing. I try to post a new video every other Saturday as of now. And I hope to see you around.